Chicago arguably has more hometown pride than any other city in the country. How many of you know someone from Chicago that won't stop telling you how great Chicago is? Right? I always find a woman who's angrily pointing at her husband because she's sick and tired of hearing about it, right? The Cubs just lost for 100 years straight and didn't lose a single fan. They didn't lose a fan, okay? People love Chicago. And Arizona is full of people from Illinois. In fact, most states are, who talk about Chicago all the time. So this is a true story. I was standing in line next to a woman, and we were total strangers. And she starts telling me how great Chicago is, and I'm thinking, I'm an Arizona girl. I've heard it all before, you know. And then at one point, she lowered her voice and kind of leaned in confidentially and looked around and said, boy, you guys sure have made a mess out here in Arizona. And I was a little offended by that, you know. It's like, those are fighting words. So I'm processing, and she said, you guys. So I said, oh, you don't live here. She said, no, I live here. I said, oh, you haven't lived here very long then. She said, no, I lived here 15 years. I said, so who the heck is you guys? You live here now. If our education system has a problem, you're part of the problem because you live here. Now, you've been here 15 years, so I started pushing back, just standing in line next to this woman. I found out she had never voted. I found out when she gave charitably, she gave back in Illinois. So I thought, ooh, I am onto something here. There's something here that's really important. So I got out my little visor and my clipboard, and I went around and I interviewed everybody I could find from Chicago. I'm calling friends. Who are your friends from Chicago? I want their numbers. I interviewed all of them. I asked them just one question. Tell me why you love Chicago so much. My smile grew bigger and bigger and bigger as I went, because they didn't realize what they were saying, but in a million different ways, in a million voices, they told me the locally owned businesses. Think about it. The first thing they said is, oh, I love Chicago because of the food scene. I love all the restaurants there. Then they said, man, in my neighborhood, I knew all the shop owners. We had all these cute little, it was window shopping, little tree-lined street. Then they said things like, in Chicago, I could just hop into my favorite booth at the restaurant, and they'd say, hey, Steve, you want the regular? They said things like, man, in Chicago, I had the same barber for 40 years. I come out here to Phoenix, and all you guys have is supercuts. I was like, that is so unfair. Give me 20 minutes, I'll find you 20 barbers. And they were like, really, where? Wow, think about that. They even said things like, I bank at the same bank my great-grandparents banked at. I feel rooted to that place. And they move out to a place that's relatively newer, and they throw that behavior out the window, and they end up interacting with all the big chain stores that, by the way, own all the corner plots at the intersections, and then they don't feel connected, and it never occurs to them that their behavior completely shifted, and it directly impacts the way they feel about their place. They didn't feel connected there. They felt like, oh, man, it was so great in Chicago. I come out here, the weather's nice. The weather's nice. Well, except for the summer. But the reality is this plays a critically important role in how our economy is actually performing. If half your community is not committed, you got a problem, right? So with this, I am so grateful that the Knight Foundation issued a huge study that showed that connection to place is actually the single most leading indicator in places that have prosperity. And that when people love their place, they're more likely to vote, they're more likely to volunteer, they're even more likely to pay their taxes without complaining, okay? They feel more accountable. I submit to you that you want to fix an education system, first you have to build a community that feels accountable for it, right? So it turns out these local businesses play a key role in the way people feel about their place and that connection to the place that they live. We do a lot of work in helping people understand the importance of connection to place.